Hey, what's happening, everybody? Welcome back to Nielsen Training Consulting. I have one of my personal best friends here, Patrick Odle. He's affiliated with a group called CIRF, the Children's International Rescue Foundation. And there's some information that I want you guys to know and understand. And Patrick is amazing. And I'm just going to turn it over to him to kind of talk about what that really is.
Well, I'm Director of Operations for Africa for Children's International Rescue Foundation, but we also do several operations and train task forces in Central and South America as well. So we've been operating off of kind of a three-pronged approach lately with child rescue, where we're actually getting undercover and infiltrating criminal organizations and leading to rescues and arrests of these predators. So this last year, we rescued 34 children and incarcerated 36 individuals that were child sex trafficking. Then we also train federally organized task forces that, like, for instance, I just got back from Zambia about 10 days ago, and we were training their first ever federal task force where they brought people from Interpol and narcotics and terrorism all together with the mission of trying to stop the human trafficking that they have taking place in Zambia. And whereas in Central and South America, it's more sexual exploitation. In Zambia, they have a lot of labor trafficking, where they're taking small children and putting them into the copper mines and the cobalt mines for all of those fancy electric vehicles that we like so much. So they do have sexual exploitation there as well, and like exploitation of like beggars, where traffickers will take control of people who are panhandling on the streets, and they'll extort them for whatever money they're making throughout the day and put them on a corner, and they'll basically be trafficking them into debt slavery, where they're shaking them down on a daily basis for the roof they put over their head or the small amount of food they might feed them. But it's always a big honor for us to get out and train one of these federal task forces, because it shows that, you know, not only are they like trying to catch the traffickers, but they're looking for any insight or training on how to, further their mission. And oftentimes in Central and South America, we're going down there and we're doing the infiltration and the investigation, and they're kind of at a standstill. Whereas with the African countries, they're wanting to take more of the initiative, and they want the training so they can get out and use the trade craft themselves. So, it's been a big honor to be able to go out and teach these people how to fish, rather than just going in the field and catching these predators ourselves. But we also started a domestic project as well. And this is something that Todd had a big part of putting us in contact with the right people for this project, where we partnered with a company called AI Vector. And what we're doing with AI Vector is we're actually programming an artificial intelligence software to be able to hunt for predatory activity on the internet. So it's capable of being used by an end user within the home, where, like, Todd, you've got some young kids, and you could run this on your network and it be protecting your network for any type of predatory activity towards the children. But we're also developing a version of this for law enforcement, where they can run an unlimited amount of decoy accounts, and they would be able to really extend their efforts instead of operating on a 1-to-1 ratio of trying to catch these sexual predators online. They can have several decoy accounts deployed in, various social media platforms or, chat rooms, things of that nature, where they could just check their desk at the beginning of every day and kind of see a priority rating of predatory behavior. So, it feels good to be working on something domestic as well, since we're primarily an international rescue foundation, and the majority of the field work and trainings that we're doing are in these foreign countries. But to be able to work on something domestically here that is going to act in more of a preventative nature versus reactive,
Right.
I think is a really big opportunity for us. And hopefully that will bring some other, much anticipated funding to the foundation as well, so that we can continue to train these federal task forces, and then we can also be going out and doing the undercover operations ourselves as well.
Right. So right now for what you guys are doing, are you bringing more task force stuff, or are you bringing operatives into specific countries to counter the human trafficking or whatever trafficking you're targeting, or how's that working?
We're actually doing all of them simultaneously, which I have to say has been putting a damper on our budget. We're a relatively small organization still. We've only been around approximately 4 years, but for us to be funding undercover operations where we're actually going out in the field and infiltrating these criminal organizations and getting arrests and rescues, it could take 2, 3 appearances of us going out there and gathering intelligence to satisfy a prosecutor and actually get the attorney general on board. Unfortunately, it's about half of that for us to go and train a whole federal task force. But, we also have to know that they're dedicated on their end and they have the committed resources. So this last one that we did in Zambia, there were 30 officers from all different backgrounds.
That's outstanding.
Including prosecutors and people from the Bureau of Internal Affairs and Foreign Affairs. They had Interpol agents. They had people specifically from terrorism and from narcotics all involved because, I'm sure you know from your background in law enforcement, oftentimes these pathways tend to traverse each other, and you can't really be far enough into gangs without discovering narcotics, and you're probably not going to be deep enough into narcotics without seeing that people are being trafficked as well. So I know it's been said before, but it's the one commodity that you can resell over and over again.
Yeah.
With arms sales or narcotic sales, once they're sold, then they have to acquire more. But with human trafficking, they can sell an individual over and over again until they're just psychologically broken. And then even at that point, they may chop them up and part them out for organs.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and that's one of the things, the kind of the newest trends that I'm starting to see start happening across the world. When you start looking at the world stage, can you, with respect to operational security, can you elaborate on any piece of that or?
Yeah, especially with our open border situation that we've been dealing with from this last administration or lack thereof entirely. We're seeing the very same criminal organizations that we're rubbing up against in Central and South America are now established even here in Utah. So, unfortunately, these criminal organizations are in nearly half the states of the United States, and this is just within a very short period of time. They're established here, and you can't expect them to not try to use their biggest money-making tactics once they're set up here. So we're seeing those same criminal organizations in Colorado, Georgia, New York, New Jersey. So many of these states that voted much more on the Democratic plane of things have basically welcomed in a nightmare with their whole sanctuary state policy. So, even with us not wanting that and having our governor pushing it on us, we have a presence of these criminal organizations here. And as you know, I teach several police officers, and I've done patrol briefings with with departments here, and I try to let them know not to be complacent because Utah is changing. Just in the 6-7 years I've been here, it's changed dramatically, and a lot of people here tend to think that this is more of an outside in the world problem, that it's not going to happen here in small town Utah. But unfortunately, all those same criminal organizations that we're rescuing children from are here, and they are actively committing crimes. So it's just a matter of time before they become brazen enough to start going after the children if they're not already.
Oh, yeah.
So,
well, and that's one of the things that just paying attention to what's going on in society and being aware of the things that are going on around you, how that can help prevent so much, a father being involved in their children's lives. And here's the other piece that a lot of people, and I'm sure you'll dig a little bit more deeper into this, it's not just girls.
No, it used to be in the high 90s of percentage of trafficking victims being female, but now it's actually in the low 90s. I believe it's 91% now are female. So 1 in 10 trafficking victims now could be male. And you really did hit the nail on the head. The single most distinguishing factor of whether or not somebody is going to be assessed as a potential victim is whether or not they have a father figure in their life. And there was an actual very, very well-honed predator that was being interviewed, and I was listening to this interview the other day, and he was saying the number one factor that I look for is not how capable they are, not whether or not they have a disability, not their intelligence level. It's whether or not they have an active father figure in their life. Because if they're unprotected, then I can pretty much do whatever I want. And what's this mother going to do but call the police with some unsubstantiated evidence
Yeah.
and try to make a big fuss? But the one factor is that balance in the universe, so to speak. It's like, what would this father do to me if they found out what I've done to their child, right? So that's why it's such an incredible factor for parents to have that solidified home environment where they can be building good self-esteem, where they could be introducing the child regularly to what their value is beyond what their body might bring to the table. Because self-esteem is the number one distinguishing factor. It's if a child has an accurate self-image and they have well-developed self-esteem, they're not going to be seduced by these predators. They're not going to be wooed by someone telling them that they're intelligent or that they're beautiful or any of those factors that oftentimes can make a friend out of a young child real quickly if they're not hearing that in the home already.
Exactly.
But it is happening on a global scale. People think that narcotics or that firearm sales and things of that nature are the biggest black market industries, but the number one, hands down, largest illegal criminal industry is human trafficking.
Yeah.
So,
And it's not like back in my day when I was still a cop and everything, it was more the sex stuff, but now it's grown into almost slavery.
yeah.
And there's so many different aspects of it that just people don't think about that really, some of the stuff that you and I've talked about that you ran into in Africa with, how little food they're actually provided while they're in this indentured servitude and everything. It's just crazy when you dig into this, what this really does to human beings.
Yeah, it's really incredible. We actually spoke with one of our cab drivers that had to work in the mines when he was a young man. And he said that it's not abnormal for people to be kept underground for a week or more at a time. They are fortunate if they get 2 meals a week. And
A week.
A week, yeah. And they're only seeing sunlight maybe once a week. And then they're being charged for the blanket that they sleep on, for the food that they give them, if you can really call it that. When I went to breakfast one morning, I asked them, what's in the big cauldron over there? And they said, oh, that's jungle porridge. And I was like, jungle porridge? And I went over and I checked it out, and it was steel cutouts. So it's like that's what they feed people when you work in the mines is you're working for a week at a time underground, getting 2 meals a week of oatmeal.
Yeah.
Not a single drop of protein. And they're giving these people 10 cents a day. But then they're charging them for the blanket that they sleep on. They're charging them for the jungle porridge. They're basically convincing them to subdue themselves to this lifestyle without giving them accurate information about what the experience is going to be like. So you have these families that see their children as a possibility of like providing a better life. So they send their kids away to the mines, not knowing that within 2 to 3 years of this work, they'll probably be dead from it. You know, especially when it comes to like lithium and cobalt, the kids will mine until their fingernails fall off and until they get, toxicity from it. And it's incredible to see like the debt slavery. You'll see it a lot with sexual exploitation as well. They'll be keeping the girls under a healthy diet of narcotics or alcohol. And then they'll also be charging them for the place that they're storing their kid at. which is basically like holding their children hostage, and they'll charge for like daycare debt. They'll charge for the roof that's over their head, the narcotics that they're shoving into their bodies. And all of this is a way to maintain that control mechanism,
Right.
so that they can keep them under their thumb. So it's heart-wrenching. The poverty level in Africa is very extreme, but what it does for my gratitude and my appreciation for where we live here in Utah,
Oh yeah.
it's incredible. I feel like every time I leave the country now, I get like a factory reset of my gratitude and appreciation. So,
Yeah.
But to see people with hardly anything, no shoes, emaciated, very small people in general, and they're just so happy to have like some food or to have clean water, and it definitely can change your perspective compared to what we're used to here as far as the creature comforts.
Yeah.
So
kind of shifting gears, how are you guys finding operatives or people that are doing the investigations or doing the trainings that you're currently doing to help task force and everything? How do you find those people?
Well, I'm kind of one of the new kids on the block. We've only taken on myself and one other board member since I've been there, and the majority of the people that we have that operate are either, in fire, or they're police officers or former military, or a combination of those. I was just at SHOT Show for a week, and I did speak with a couple of gentlemen that were either set to retire shortly from law enforcement or had recently retired, and they were looking for something to do to donate and give their time back to something that matters. It's difficult because we have to put them through a rigorous background check, and even with myself not being former military or law enforcement, I happen to have developed a lot of skills along the way that were valuable for field work, and even with me, it was a very, very slow process for getting evaluated and actually getting to go out on operations. But it's difficult. You'll have people that are qualified, but it doesn't necessarily mean that their psyche is capable of handling the experience.
Yeah.
Because you could have somebody who is an amazing patrol officer for 20 years, and maybe they served in the military as well, and they understand, the details as far as they pertain to the mission objective. But, a lot of times people will go out and they'll have an experience where they come back and they internalize that and they project it onto their own children or their own family. And so it definitely takes a certain type of person to be able to experience these atrocities and not take the work home with them.
Yeah,
so,
most definitely.
So it is hard. I mean, we're always looking for people that have a valid background that might give them the ability to do this kind of work. But I'm sure you've heard of other organizations where one person steps out of line and it compromises the integrity of the whole organization. So, we have to be very careful who we put in the field, and that these people are of the highest integrity and capability. Because you could have somebody that has amazing integrity, but what if everything breaks out into a knife fight right there in some little nightclub? And, so finding that balance of capability and integrity is very difficult. Even a lot of the guys that I work with, they're amazing on the integrity side, but they're not combative specialists, so, it's about having some sense of balance. I've met a lot of guys that think that this is like a door kicker type of job and that we're like coming in guns a-blazing and, like the Hollywood approach to this, but it's tradecraft. It's gathering intelligence and getting out of this incredibly bad situation before they figure out who we are or why we're there. And but these predators are so brazen, they're so comfortable with what they're doing that oftentimes, they see an American and they'll just start offering you anything under the sun. So oftentimes we're catching them in controlled narcotics purchases.
Oh yeah.
We're stacking everything that we can
Yeah.
just to make sure that everything sticks well. But it's delicate. Like right now, we have primarily about a dozen or so guys who have been doing all of our field work, and there's a shelf life to this kind of work.
Yeah, it's not just it's not going to be a 9 to 5. It's going to be something that it's going to take and wear on your body, and your mind and your psyche and everything else. It's not just you can't do this for 30 years.
No, I mean, if anything, it can wear on your relationships or your ability to try to have a healthy relationship. I mean, I've been on a date before where I meet somebody and it seems like everything's going well, and towards the end of the night, they're like, well, I think it's great that you're doing what you're doing, but I just don't know if I could wonder every night if the person I'm dating is going to come back, or if, if something bad's going to happen. So, and I get it. Not everybody's cut out to be like a military wife or a law enforcement wife, but there are sacrifices. And for me, there's no unringing the bell now. It's like, now that I know this is happening, I can never just go back to acting like I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
So I'll do the field work as long as I can. And when I can't do that anymore, I'll take an administration position, or I'll take on a training position, and just keep up the fight in the capacity that I'm comfortable doing it. But, I know guys that have been doing this 6-7 years, and I'm sure it definitely has had an effect on them. So.
Yeah, that's a fact. It's definitely going to have an effect on them. So, how would someone get in contact with you guys if they wanted to either explore donating some time or becoming an operative or anything like that?
Usually we do one training a year, and if you pass your background check and we feel like you could be valuable to the organization, then we invite you out for that operator training.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember, but we did one of those a ways back at BPMF, right? And I did that operator training, and I threw my hat in the ring for probably 6 months after that training, and finally things got hairy enough to where they asked me to come out with them.
Yeah.
But, I remember just being like, I'm still available. And then another one would come and I'm like, still available, But every time somebody that was either more qualified or more experienced than me was able to go.
Right.
So I get it now. But, just being patient and realizing that it's about the design of the foundation and not necessarily about your personal wants or needs.
Yeah.
But, if you reach out to the CIRF.org, there's a contact tab that you can hit there. So if you're interested in making a contribution, whether it's in field operations or, maybe you're just a kick-ass grant writer, or you're like one of those people that really understands finances or social media, optimization or something along those lines, where you feel like there's something from your profession or your personal life that you could contribute. If you go to thecirf.org, you can reach out to us there via the contact tab. If you go to that webpage, there's a big button right in the center of the top of the page where you can donate now if just financial support is what you're thinking a contribution looks like to you. We have it set up to where you could do like a reoccurring $5 a month,
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, we have it super simplified to where it could be a reoccurring donation or just a one-time donation. You can do them anonymously, or, you can put in your information there. We've had people donate on behalf of, a past, child that they had that really believed in this fight. So they donated to fund an operation in memory of their son.
Oh, that's awesome.
And
that's
we've
awesome.
had other ones where we had people that we don't even know who they are, and they just donated a substantial amount because they wanted us to have that money to be able to use however we see fit.
Right.
So one thing I can say about the foundation that really does separate us from a lot of other organizations that claim to be doing the same work is that no one on our board of directors draws a salary. Like being here doing this podcast. I did another podcast Friday night. I was on the news Friday morning. I don't get paid for any of that stuff. Like as board of directors, none of us draws a salary. We all have our day jobs. We do those, and we do this because it's the right thing to do. I'd love to see us in a position at one point where we can actually pay our operators who are going out in the field and missing work or using time off or sick time so that they could be out doing these operations. But right now, everything is running strictly off of donations, and we can actually be verified. You can go to Give Freely or any other of those websites that checks the validity of not-for-profit organizations, and you can see that like all of the resources that we take in every year go to saving these children and creating a substantial structure and system in these countries where they know what to do and they know that they have us to fall back on for support.
Right.
So, primarily my undercover operations are in South America that I do, and rather than, pinpoint exactly where those are.
Yeah.
I mean, we operate in Ecuador, Belize, Peru, Colombia. It's like all throughout Central and South America. But now we're getting the call to come into Africa now too, and just Zambia is who like really bit it off first. But we've got Malawi and Ghana and Uganda and Kenya, all wanting to follow in suit shortly after.
Right.
But we need to have the resources in play to be able to go out and train those task forces. So we are doing it all. We're going firsthand and rescuing people, and we're training these task forces so they could be doing it when we're not there or when we can't get out there. And then, since we can't really do much with the structure of the judicial system here, we're working on the line of prevention.
Okay.
Because here, if a child gets taken from the family, we're lucky to get the child back to the family. But unless you're willing to put a child on the stand to be cross-examined by some POS defense attorney who's trying to get a child predator off, then you're literally forcing that child to relive their trauma all over again, right? So unless you're willing to do that for the chance that you might get a conviction, here, over 90% of the time, 72 hours later, the predator walks. And all charges are dismissed. And the family's happy to get their kid back, and this guy can go out and snag another one in less time than it would take for that initial child to get treatment. So it really is sad here. The way the judicial system is set up is that you literally have to allow for a victim to be cross-examined to even chance getting any type of conviction, or you need just a full-blown confession.
Right.
And they're smart enough now here to where they know that. They know if they just shut up and they threaten that child hard enough that they're going to walk.
Yep.
So we focused more on prevention here with our software. It's called Digital Sentinel. We're hoping to have that released here in the next 5 months or so, at least a law enforcement version.
Yep.
So anybody that's interested in knowing more about Digital Sentinel, you can also go to thecirf.org and you can write us an email. We're forming a mailing list right now for end users for Digital Sentinel. That way, if you want to have this monitor your network for Fortnite, Roblox, Minecraft, chat rooms, social media, all of that stuff, it covers anything with a chat interface and can monitor your whole network. But also just getting this into the hands of law enforcement to where you could have one guy monitoring 40, 50, 60 decoy accounts at a time and AI powering all of that.
That software, that's, as much as I can talk about on it, it's absolutely amazing, and it's something that is going to revolutionize these types of investigations. And that's one of the things that a lot of people don't think about is how long does this stuff take? Like doing some of the stuff that you've done in South America, just for you to be able to go do an operation there, it's 4 or 5 months before that operation even happens for you guys to even set up the operation to go execute on the operation.
Yeah, our local law enforcement partners may have been working that for, like you said, 4 or 5 months, and they're just hitting a wall, like a standstill. And then they'll bring us in to kind of crack it wide open and bring it to the next tier of exposure. And And then just because we're on it doesn't mean that it's going to be a slam dunk and close by the end of the week. We might
Right.
have to make 2-3 appearances out there, and we're talking tens of thousands of dollars for one rescue. And the sad part, the heart wrenching part, is that oftentimes, like, I'll be in there on the first appearance, and then I'll be there for the takedown, and I don't even recognize any of these kids
Yeah.
during the takedown.
They're completely different kids.
Completely different kids.
Yeah.
They're being rotated to another location. They're keeping them moving around so they're not having the merchandise staling out, to where they're always keeping the consumer wondering,
Yep.
what's going to be there next. And so oftentimes it's like I'll be talking with these victims, before the takedown, asking them, oh, well, have you seen so-and-so? And they're like, oh, no, she hasn't been here for a long time. I think I know who you're talking about, though, or, So it's like you'll hear little tidbits about what happens to these other kids that you might have built rapport with over the last, month or 2 months of investigation. And one day you show up and they're just gone.
Yeah.
So, it's very difficult if you have an idea in your head of what a rescue looks like to see that it's probably nothing like that. And, but the thing that I can say is that in these third world countries, we're getting 25 to 35 year convictions out of these predators. So,
that's awesome.
In a third world prison, you're lucky to make it 3 years, let alone 30,
That's basically a death sentence for them.
Yeah, especially considering that it's not as politically correct and we don't have protective custody tiers in those prisons where your gang dropouts and your child predators and your sexual predators all have a safe haven. So
right.
in these countries, they're going right out into the main line. They're going into general population, and stuff is working itself out. And especially if they were paying up to one of these criminal organizations for protection,
right?
So as soon as that protection money is not coming in anymore, a lot of times they're resolving their own issues. So, I've had people ask me, like, don't you wish that you were part of the punishment? And that's the thing is, like, we're not there to punish anyone. We're not there to, like, judge them. We're there to build a case profile, get it to the appropriate authorities, and then it's going to work itself out,
Yeah.
Like, we trust our partners that they want to see a difference for their country. And, so I'm not swinging the axe at the chopping block or like pulling the lever that drops the hangman's noose, but I do get to walk them to those gallows knowing that the last time that we interact with them, it's probably going to be the last time that they're out there hurting another kid.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I know for a lot of the operatives, that's their goal. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for that, hey, I just saved that kid. It may not be I'm saving 150 kids, but I saved that one.
Yeah, that was the same mentality I had when I got into the work. Is I really didn't know if it was something I'd be able to do or to like digest. And I kind of like who I am as a person, and I wanted to make sure I'm still me when I spit out the other end. And that was kind of the resolve that I found initially starting the work. Is like, well, if I save just one kid and then I decide this isn't for me, that's one more than was saved beforehand.
Yep.
And then it reminds me of like how you hear like the proverb of the alcoholic, and he's like, I'm just not going to drink today. I'm just not going to drink today. And then that turns into a month. It turns into a year. It turns into 10 years.
Yeah.
But like I didn't know if this was right for me, but I could save one. I know I can save one,
Yep. Yep.
And then like the more I went back and did it, it's like, I remember coming home from my first operation and we were successful. And my girlfriend at the time was like, well, how was it? And I just like got emotional. And I told her, I was like, it was fucking horrible, like, it's just these children, they find it normal to be like raped and assaulted like multiple times a day. And it's all they know. So like when a song comes on the radio that they know, they sing their hearts out, and like, the the extreme of it is that they're trying to make the most out of whatever fun time they can all day long.
Yeah.
So not a one of these girls could sing, but when a song would come on that they recognized, they would just sing so
belt it out
hideously and horribly, and it would put the biggest smile on my face because it was the only freedom that they had, you know? And I remember telling her, like, they're clinging to any freedom that they can have because they have no control over their life every day. And she was like, and she saw me like emotional, which wasn't really normal for me, especially then. And she's like, well, are you going to keep doing it? And I remember looking at her like, how dare you?
How dare you even say that?
You know? And I was like, of course I am. And I think at that moment, she would literally have accepted whatever came out of my mouth because, you know, she could see the effect of it on me, you know?
Yeah.
And I remember like pulling myself together and then like getting in the shower and like realizing like the hot water was hot like instantly and the walls were all white and the rugs were white and the shower curtains white and everything's super clean and I remember just getting in there and being like, fuck, I've got it so good. Like, we have it so good here, you know? And so that's like what I really couldn't have anticipated. I knew it would feel good to give a kid a second chance.
Yeah.
But I really could not have even anticipated the value it was going to add to my like daily life.
Yep.
And because I mean, we've known each other years now, right? Yeah. And I'm sure that you've seen a lot more of a calm version of me since I've started doing this work. And before I was bouncing and everything was fast paced and it's like I've really had to like dictate a new pace for my life if I'm going to keep doing this kind of work.
Yeah.
And so being able to like know that I'm aligned with a purpose that makes a difference, I really couldn't have anticipated how important that would be. You know, now all of a sudden 30 years of all of this training like makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, and I found my element. So, you know, I'll do it as long as I can, but I also have to like listen to myself and make sure that not just me, but like the guys that are on my team are staying balanced.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why it's amazing to have like people near me that have worked in this realm and, you know, like you, I know I can call you anytime.
Yep.
I know I can call Jeff Kirkham anytime. You know, I've got these people that have extensive backgrounds that are there for me, you know, and they understand what I'm dealing with is not orthodox and that there's going to be things that I'm going to have to work through. And as weird as it sounds, like I probably could have like gone my whole life just burying whatever little like BS has been bothering me since, you know, my upbringing and all of that.
Right.
But because of getting involved in this work, now things are taking like a greater priority.
Oh yeah.
You know,
it's almost healing.
Whether you like it or not, you know, and I think that that's a big part of it is that the more I've been doing this, the more I've had things just kind of like rear their ugly head. And there were things that never bothered me before, but now all of a sudden it's like renting space in my head. And so I've had to like focus on my own personal well-being and like taking out the old garbage that might have been stacking up, you know, and I probably would have never done it just for me because I was okay being uncomfortable. But like when I know that it can throw me off, like when I'm in the field or when my shit needs to be dialed, like when a micro expression could
when I can
get me killed,
you know? Or change the entire op or blow the entire operation.
So it definitely has put more priority on me to stay like healthy and balanced and tuned in, you know, whereas in before those deficiencies I don't think were a priority,
right?
So
those are just kind of an adapt and override type thing. And now it's like, no, I gotta drive on and fix this. I've got to address it. And so,
you know, seeing a therapist and like going to mental health retreats and all these things that like I would have scoffed at a year ago.
Yeah.
You know, it's like my whole year has been just not about like growing these teams and like growing these task forces, but like trying to make sure that I stay in my right state so that I can keep contributing.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of different contributions we've had people make. We've had people that are just, they're great connectors. So they'll reach out to us and put us in touch with somebody that we would benefit from knowing. And then we've had other people where they're like, look, I want to do something that matters.
Yeah.
I just retired from a job of 20 years, high intense stress. I've got these skills. I want to know how to put them to work. So they want to go into operations. But, it's just, I think that everybody has something to contribute to the movement, whether they realize it or not, even if it's just having like these kinds of difficult conversations like we're having today in the community, being willing to, speak in front of your congregation or being willing to speak at one of your children's schools. It's just, these difficult conversations, I think, are what tends to sweep it under the rug.
Yeah.
It's what gives people that false sense of security here that it won't happen in Utah. And that's not the case. I mean, there are kidnappings here. There are druggings. There are roofyings. Like, we've seen it all, especially with the bouncing.
Yeah.
I literally train a lady once a week whose daughter was talking to a guy on the internet. This guy shows up to Lagoon to pick up all of the kids. A couple of the kids ride home with somebody different, and she hops in this guy's car, and he like has her drink some lemonade out of his cup holder. And next thing you know, she's waking up in a gas station bathroom in Tooele, like
not knowing
how she got there. Her phone had said that she had been up to Ogden and back. The mom's trying to get a hold of her. She's completely disoriented. She was basically drugged and date raped. And, it's like this stuff happens here. This isn't just theoretical stuff that like I'm pulling out of my hat.
Yeah.
So it's just people tend to get so comfortable here because they think we're in small town Utah. And unfortunately, the world is changing. So
yeah, and that's one of the biggest reasons why we wanted to get together to bring this together to talk about so that people are aware of it, but then also to show you that there's a way to combat that, and there's people out there that are working to make sure that this stuff doesn't continue to grow. It gets slowly diminished, and the more time that we commit to it and the more we diminish it, the less it's going to happen, and just makes it better for all the people that are around us.
Yeah, and it's not easy to talk about, especially with young people. Nobody wants their children living in a state of fear, but like I remember being little and my mom telling me that like there's weird people that aren't like the other people that that have like these perverted, desires, and it's not like you have to be afraid of everybody, but if you get that weird feeling, like you should listen to it. And this is why I give free women's defense courses, and I talk about awareness and avoidance and communication, because if you're using all of these tools, it's pretty easy to pick out the people who are a little off.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, but it's all about having those difficult conversations within your community and really making sure that this is something that children know is an actual factor.
Right.
But I appreciate the platform just to be able to talk about the work that we do. If anybody has questions about what we're doing, you can always reach out to me at patrick@thecirf.org. That's my direct email. I've had people wanting to know about how they start an organization, about how they could contribute to an organization.
Right.
If there's somebody in their area that has good rapport that they could help support, it really does take the whole village to stand up and protect our children.
100%. With that, we'll put the description somewhere around in here for you guys with the website and all that stuff for you to reach out. If you can donate, great. If you can just share the video or share the website with 10 of your friends or 5 of your friends or 2 of your friends, or just have a simple conversation about this topic. Just spread the word and get it out there to people. Also, on that note, if people want to train with you for the combatives or the hand-to-hand, the knife stuff, any of that stuff, hands down, he's the best. Otherwise, I wouldn't be promoting him. So
yeah,
reach out to him. Do you want to give them that information?
yeah. You can reach me at patrick@mccdefense.com. Or you can also just go to mccdefense.com, and there is a contact me button on there. There are several other like podcasts and interviews that I've done that are posted up there, so you can hear about the work that I do. I specialize in edged weapon and hand-to-hand combat, but I'm also a firearms instructor and have some other tricks up my sleeve. But we're in Utah, so those are a bit more common. But it's just, I think that everybody should have the ability to enforce their ability to say no to something.
Correct.
And the bottom line is if you have no method of enforcement, your no is merely a suggestion. So I give people the ability to enforce that no.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. Y'all have a great day. Be kind to each other.
Thank you for having me.